All right, we've got a short one today. We're just going to talk about skill checks and spells. Uh, Skill checks are based on tags and words. It's any time that you do something that has a penalty for failure. So if you want to climb a ladder, there's no check for that. You just climb a ladder. We assume basic competency of pretty much everyone in normal ways and also in their profession. So if it's super muddy and there are like really clear footprints in the mud, you don't need to roll to track that. You only need to roll for things that are hard to do. So with that out of the way, we're going to talk about the basic skill check. The basic skill check is that the storyteller rolls one six-sided die. And whatever number comes up is the challenge, right? And the player rolls one six-sided die, and their number has to meet or beat the challenge. If it's the same, the player wins. So that's the basic form. For every mitigating circumstance, or word or tag, in favor or against, we modify those numbers. So if you are trying to track something over hard ground and it's been raining, that might increase the challenge for each circumstance. So on rocky terrain, 2d6. On rocky terrain in the rain, 3d6. So he's going to roll those 3 six-sided dice, the storyteller is. And let's say it comes up 2, 3, and 5. You, as the player, if you have tags like tracker or words like track, you can play those to get additional dice in your favor. Now, because you might not have words or tags that help you with that, how can a person who can only roll 1d6 match 2, 3, and 5? They can't. So what we have is we call partial success, which is where you beat some of the challenge dice but not all. Because you have to beat each number individually, they are not totaled. So, the point of partial success is to keep the narrative going organically, right? So let's say you are tracking something over rocky terrain in the rain. You roll a 2. So you beat the 2, but not the 3 or the 5. It's easy for the storyteller to explain that away as, oh, you start to get the sense that something was here, but you can't determine what or when or which way it was going, right? You don't get the success, but you're also not told, oh, you suck at life. So, you want to use words and tags to do things that you're good at. And if the word matches identically, like if you are tracking and you have the word track, you get +1 to any one of your dice. So in the example we're using, challenge dice 2, 3, 5, if you have, I guess, base 1d6, the word track, and you are a tracker, you can add 1 to any one of your 3 dice after you've rolled it. And remember, you have to beat the numbers individually. So if you roll 2 1s and a 2, you've still only beaten 1 of the challenge dice. They're not totaled in any way. Now, this can be time consuming, so you don't want to overdo it and like sit there and go through your sheet a million times looking for bonuses, but it should get more intuitive as you play. So moving on to spells. Spells do not require a roll in the same way, which is why if you have 2 words that would let you do a thing, you might be better off just casting a spell. Spells require at least 2 words, the inherent words that you choose as actions at the beginning when you make your character, and they are drawn from the deck. Tags do not count as words, they can't do magic. So you combine 2 words to manipulate 2 concepts to make a magical effect. And you and your storyteller just have to come to an agreement on what's fine. Pretty much everything should be fine. You're altering reality, it's supposed to be a big effect. Has to make sense. Can't use homonyms. But, for example, in the recent playtest, we had a player use hail pebbles to cave in a cave on top of the boss. That is inconvenient for my boss. But it's also rad, so like go with it. The basic requirements for magic are at least 2 words, you have to be able to interact with the thing that you are casting on. So if you're doing paralyzed person, you have to touch the person, which requires an attack roll. If you're doing paralyzed person arrow, right, you can conjure a magic arrow and do that. You still have to ranged attack. So there are some rolls involved, but only in the application, not in whether or not the effect is imparted. In the case of hail pebbles, like the pebbles are there and you're casting magic. It's fine. You do not have to reach up and touch the cave roof to make it happen. So just going to go through some examples here of how you might combine words to get the effects that you want. The power of the magic scales with the number of words. So you want to, as the storyteller, reserve some space for expanding the effect in the future. Paralyzed person will probably paralyze a person for 1 round if you land a touch attack. Lasting paralyzed person will probably paralyze a person for as long as you need to story-wise, narratively, like for a day. Permanent paralyzed person, well, that's all in the name, isn't it? So words like permanent, infinite, endless, global, like these are big spells. And they should only be used in a way that makes sense narratively, right? If you are going to do a global blind and darken the earth, that is a big thing to do. So it needs to make sense for your character. It needs to make sense for the context, and also you will be blinding yourself, which is a fun game, I guess. So when somebody comes at you with paralyzed person, before they make their touch attack, you have the opportunity to replace any word in their spell with your own word. You have to do this when they cast it. So if instead of paralyzed person, you replace paralyzed with charm, when they land their attack on you, you will become charmed instead of paralyzed. This is not necessarily better, it's just different. So it's totally up to the storyteller what the effect of charm person is going to end up doing on you, but it might be preferable to kill person, right? You can counterspell any word in the sequence of words used to cast the spell, and people can counterspell your counterspells. So if you change it to charm person, they might change person to congregation and charm your whole damn team. This is the silly side of Words of Power, is the stacking of counterspells that gets out of control, and the storyteller has to roll with it to make it make sense. It is less stressful than it sounds, especially if you keep the game in a coherent narrative where people are playing real characters. It is obviously abusable, but this is where we go back again to tools, not rules. We're trying to tell a story and play characters that are interesting. We're not trying to win. There's no way to win at Words of Power. There's just not. So it's important to note that to counterspell, you just have to be able to see the person casting and then provide a word of your own while they're casting. So enemy Fate Weavers can counterspell you, even ones that you don't necessarily see. So when you go to heal somebody's maimed arm, for example, and you use organic regrowth, and somebody counterspells that organic to corrupted, and you end up with something other than an arm, then it's going to be frustrating, but it's entirely possible. So when you're casting spells in any context, in combat, out of combat, make sure that you are confident that it is a situation that requires magic and that you want to take the risk of getting somebody's attention. In the world of Words of Power, normal people don't notice magical effect. They think it's the most normal thing in the world. So charm person, besties, nobody around notices. But other Fate Weavers, which is other players and generally bosses, important people in the world, they will notice. They have a sense for it and they can see it. So if you're casting magic, they will know. You are like shining a light on yourself saying, hey, just so you know, I have fates you might want to steal. So it's kind of a big deal. Make sure that you are using it sparingly, obviously, but also don't be shy. Cast some cool spells. Do some cool. So this is the portion that lets you play your character your way. If you're playing a summoner, you need to be able to summon things without worrying about the balance of that, right? And it's totally up to the storyteller to find a way to balance it out over time. But you should never mitigate the effects of a spell just because it seems a little much. We're giving players tools to play the characters they want to play in the way that they want to play them, and it is our job as storytellers to roll with it, to make the story about that character rather than trying to fit that character into our story. So that's all we've got, skill checks and spells. Next time we will finally see the battle board. Alright, thanks for sticking with me till the end. Just a reminder that the game is still in development, and so the most current rules will not be in these videos. They will be on the website in the rule book. You can also stop by the Discord to get up-to-date information and maybe participate in the upcoming weekly public games. If you'd like to be a playtester, make sure to DM me, because we need them badly. Have a great day.